Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, real quick, before we jump into the episode, I need you to do the 3 S's for me. What is that? First of all, I need you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode of our podcast. Number 2, I need you to share it with your family and friends. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else. Lastly, I need you to say something. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see from us, what you like, what you don't like. We are open to your suggestions. We want to know everything that you want to let us know about the podcast. All right. Now, get back to the episode. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, we're on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share to our podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms. And again, make sure you share it with someone else. Don't keep it to yourself, but share it with your family and friends that we are here on the air. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, where you will find our sister podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which you are listening to or watching right now. Again, that's the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, and a couple other podcasts that we also have, all that can be found on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. So make sure you guys go there and check us out. Also, our podcast is brought to us by our new endeavor, which is our school platform. So we just started our school platform, which is the Deal to Heal School for Living, which can be found on the school platform to help us carry out our mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Again, deal with your problems, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose by bringing you resources and workshops to help you through the different things in different areas of your life. So make sure you guys go and check us out on the school platform, which is the Deal to Heal School for Living. The first week is absolutely free, so you can go there, check it out for 7 days, see if you like it, take part of some of the workshops that are available. And if you decide to stay, it's only $27 a month. And each month you will be given access to a new workshop. So make sure you guys go there. Again, checking us out on the school platform with our school community, which is the Deal to Heal School for Living. So that is what we got going on. But right now, today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Miss Christine. How you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So we're going to jump right into this thing.
Yeah,
Christine,
let's
do me a
talk.
favor. Yeah, do me a favor. Introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Christine, and I'm a holistic transformation guide, and that sounds a little fancy, but I've had multiple sclerosis for 20 years, and I've been on my own healing path and healing with a lot of health conditions, chronic health conditions, not just MS. And doing all of that naturally and successfully, as the case is. But then I realized that I was kind of going about it on a lot of the wrong ways. And I discovered way of healing insofar as working with your nervous system. And it's kind of like a catchphrase these days. A lot of people are using that word. And, but I think it's a very important modality. And I think that, especially the culture at large and the world we're living in, a lot of us could use some insight in how our nervous system wants to heal and how we keep our own nervous system dysregulated, actually, despite our best efforts. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, I am too. I am too because when I read, the bio that you sent to me, and you mentioned about, different ways and different things that you've healed yourself from, and I shared with you that I'm kind of on this natural healing journey myself, and really trying to get into natural remedies because I don't like medicine. I never have. Um, but I'm getting older, and and the bodies are starting to tell me different things. Like, all right, there are different areas I need to pay attention to. And so, that being said, I've been trying to find some natural ways to, just become healthier, moving more. I started hiking, so I, hike, and last year I did my first two 5Ks. Uh,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah, yeah, and looking forward to doing. I want to do three this year, and so yeah, just trying to be overall healthy and getting myself where I want to be. But I want to go back, in your story a little bit because you mentioned about having multiple sclerosis, and so let's talk about that. Just in your earlier life, or should I say, just growing up with it, and just tell us a little bit like who you were as a person, growing up, and how was life, and even dealing with multiple sclerosis before you got to the point where you decided to kind of start finding ways to heal yourself.
Yeah. Well, I was diagnosed 20 years ago. And so, but before then, like a lot of times I think when we look at a diagnosis and we think like, how were we living pre-diagnosis? Like, were there any
Mhm.
clues
Yeah.
that that's what I had, right? I think that's really normal and natural for us to do. And I didn't really think that I ever had any symptoms of like nervous, it's a chronic condition of the nervous system, but I didn't have any symptoms. I felt like I was a perfectly healthy person, which is
Mhm.
ironic. And 20 years later, what I know about that is it makes me laugh to just say it. But if I do, now that I know what I know about the nervous system, if I think about who I was back then, I was completely dysregulated and I had a pretty traumatic childhood. I mean, a lot of us do. It's not necessarily a new or unique story, but I think it's relevant to how all of us deal with our traumatic past and the things that happen to us because that's life and that's these are the things and circumstances we deal with. But a lot of us never learn to deal with those things and then they create the person that we become
Mhm.
and unwittingly so if I look back then I think I identify more as somebody who had absolutely no relationship with my nervous system and that I created an entire life based on all of the traumas and the difficulty things that I dealt with in my youth and my early adulthood that I had no connection to.
Mhm.
I didn't recognize it in the same way that I do today. So for sure, I was a much different person a long time ago.
Yeah, and I like what you said because I don't think many of us, and then probably even including myself at some point, really recognizes how much our um, our body and our nervous system affects our day to day, affects our thinking, and the traumas that we have. That's where I want to go. The traumas and the experiences that we have in our life, how much it does affect our body. A lot of
Yes.
times we think if it's not a physical something that happens to us, it's like, oh, well, I'm okay. Like my body's okay. But it's like, no, there are books like The Body Keeps Score. And there's a book called The Garden Within by Dr. Anita Phillips was one of my favorite books, which really goes into, how your body affects, everything. Your body is affected by your emotions and different things like that. But I don't think that a lot of times we even pay attention to that. We think that, we have these experiences when we're younger, or we just have these traumatic experiences, in our lives. And we think that because they weren't necessarily physically traumatic, that it doesn't really affect our bodies like that. But it's been known and been found that, different things, even just stress and holding in stress and things of that nature, that when you just hold it in and without processing it, that it starts to affect your body. And I don't think that we necessarily pay attention to that. Most of us.
We don't. And what you said is so true, and it's exactly the truth. We
Mm,
wear our traumas, unprocessed grief traumas. We
mm,
wear them all over our body. They are everything. They're in us, they're outside of us. They're the decisions we create, they're the relationships that we have, they're the choices of our jobs. They're our relationship with the entire world.
yeah, yeah.
And I think what's interesting and fascinating, and I think that due to the work of these authors and a lot of the conversation that's starting to become more in, like I say, like the zeitgeist, like we're starting to create a lot of conversations around
Mhm,
understanding that the nervous system is an important interface. And but what I also like to share is that as it relates to your relationship with your body and listening to your body, a lot of us would say, like, oh, I have high blood pressure, my doctor says that's a normal part of aging, and not actually recognize that that's a nervous system imbalance. It's a
mhm,
coping mechanism, or that's the way your body is talking to you to tell you that something's out of balance. And instead we think of that as something that's somewhat normal,
mhm,
acceptable, and or even we'll even like go to the diet, let's say, and be like, oh, I just cut back on my salt. And it's
mhm,
like, well, yeah, of course there's definitely some dietary things that are not good for your blood, your sodium levels in your blood. But that kind of pales in significance to all of the stress of your job and the
mhm.
dissatisfaction you have in your relationships and all of those type of things that are actually fueling your hypertension. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? And so
yeah,
I think
yeah,
kind of like all of us is we're disconnected from all of these different things and not pulling it all together and being like, oh, my body is actually sharing a wisdom with me.
yeah, yeah. And so, and you mentioned about, when we're dealing with all of this, where our bodies are deregulated, right? And so
Mhm.
I know it's a fancy word to me, you know what I mean? Because it's like, all right, but what does it actually mean? It sounds good, but what does it actually mean? Because I like to, you know, uh I'll just say it this way, especially in this generation. A lot of us didn't grow up with thesauruses, right? I did, but now it's like, what is a thesaurus? Like, people don't even know what that is. You know what I mean? And so I like to understand, and I'm, as being a speaker as well, I like to understand, because we use a lot of words that mean different things, that a lot of times we just take it and don't necessarily process like what we're actually being said, what's actually being said.
Yep.
And so when you say, the nervous system being deregulated, what exactly does that mean? And what are some of the signs maybe that we'll be able to recognize, like, oh, I think that's something that I may be dealing with.
Yeah, that's such a good question because it's true. It's like one thing to go from like these esoteric conversations that are about concepts that, we're
Mhm.
looking for a thesaurus to sort of like, or our dictionary to be like, wait, what is that? I'm just trying to remember my high school biology class. And then going from that concept to seeing yourself in that and making that connection to the importance of it.
Mhm.
And so I think that we all know people who are dysregulated. I think that the whole world is dysregulated right now. Um, you I think some of the common things are people who are emotionally triggered all the time,
Mhm.
people who have a short fuse, people who are always in the drama realm. They're always feeling drama, feeding drama, attracting drama. they're all about the drama. I used to be that person.
Right.
Um, and people who have perpetually like dissatisfying jobs, relationships, partnerships, um, people just have no emotional regulation.
Okay.
They have a short fuse, like any number of emotional, like it shows up a lot in our emotional processing. And either somebody's super shut off from the world and don't feel any emotions, or someone's could be like, it's a whole range of things because the whole range of emotions is huge. But it's when we don't have the capacity to hold our emotional space for our emotions, and then the emotions rule our life, and they become something where we create an identity from that, like I am an anxious person, as opposed to I'm experiencing anxiety right now.
Hmm.
um, and so we create an identity from it. We create belief structures from the emotional states we experience, without recognizing it's how we deal with our emotional state and not an identity we create from our emotional state. And then from that identity, we create belief structures. And from the identity and the belief structures, then we create stories, and then we create decisions. We make decisions like,
Yeah.
I'm an anxious person, so I'm going to avoid this circumstance to like keep myself safe from feeling anxiety. When actually, what if none of that is true?
Yeah.
What if none of that is true? What if it's all in? And then, as a consequence, then you have like blood sugar issues, or you
Mhm.
have other health conditions that you're treating separately and not even recognizing that it's your anxiety that's causing you to disrupt your digestive process.
Yeah.
Some things like that. That's an
Yeah.
example,
Can we?
or a
I
long
want to talk a
example.
little bit about anxiety, right? So because, and I hope my daughter don't mind me sharing this, but I'm gonna share it because it was such a traumatic experience for me, right? And I know it was traumatic for her, but it was definitely traumatic for me. So my daughter, she had told me before that she's dealt with anxiety, and I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
so I knew it, but I had never experienced it. And so my daughter was living with me for a couple of years, and then she recently moved out. She's 22, finna be 23 now. So she's wanted to kind of spread her wings a little bit. And so she moved out, and I moved to another state, and so, going through that change, being in a new state, in a space where you don't really know anybody. I think she had like one friend that was there that she connected with, but new state, new everything, and she called me one day, and she's inside of a full blown panic attack, and she can't breathe. She's crying. I'm on the phone. She's in a whole nother state. I'm in Illinois. I'm on the phone with her, and she's crying. I'm trying to comfort her. And one of the most helpless feelings I've ever been in, especially as a dad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because
Yes,
I'm on
I
this
do.
phone, I'm holding this phone, I'm listening to my baby because she's my only child, right? So I'm listening to her, and she's crying, and she can't catch her breath, and she's going through this whole thing, and there's nothing I can do. You know what I mean? And so I'm just kind of in this space with her, just like, okay, I'm gonna stay on the phone, um uh, I had someone call one of her friends who came to the house where she was, or kind of with her, and called the ambulance so they can kind of, check on her, whatever. But the whole thing lasted about an hour. So I'm sitting on the phone with my daughter for about an hour, and she's in this full blown panic attack, like for a whole hour, and she's crying. And then she would kind of calm down, and then right when she's like getting calm, then it would kick back in, and then she'd go back into it again. One of the most helpless feelings I ever had as a dad, to not, you can't really say the right thing because like nothing you can say. I can't get there, so there's nothing I can do, and I've never dealt with it before, so I don't know, really the symptoms of it. I don't know I kind of know what triggered it for her. Um, but from personal experience, I have no experience with it, and so when we talk about our nervous system and just with anxiety, is there some things that we can do, or just in overall, as we talk about, uh getting our bodies back kind of in the place where that we want them to be? Is there some things that we can do to kind of nurture our body to get back into a good space, to kind of be able to connect with it, where we can kind of control ourselves a little bit more?
Yeah, wow. That's so many. Thank you for sharing that story, and also thank you for being like a super dad and being on the phone with her for that long while she had to process everything. And it is hard to hold space for somebody else when they're experiencing a big emotion without it affecting us as well. And
Mhm.
that's really big, right? Especially if it's
Yes.
someone that we love or a child. I have a daughter, she's 22 as well. So we share
Mhm.
that. Um, and I think like, just like in general, anxiety is an emotion built on the foundation of fear. It's fear is usually at the root of any anxious moment. And it
Right.
makes sense, like potentially that, your daughter was experiencing a lot of fear based
Yeah.
circumstances because she's in a new place and everything's new, trusting herself. And so, yeah, a lot of these things are going to ignite fear within somebody, and then you're anxious about that. And I think though that you asked something though that was really powerful, because I think like this is like what is so beautiful and important, I think, about us having a conversation about emotions and how we recognize that it's really important that we're able to both experience our own emotional state, but also how our emotional state affects the people that we love and are closest to us in our life.
Mhm.
A lot of times, the people who are on the receiving end of our emotional experience take it personally. They make it about them, or let's say it's not about them, but they end up feeling something like inferior, or they feel afraid, they want to run away, they feel uncomfortable, right? And then something comes up in them that is like a reflection of their inability to rise to the moment, whatever that looks
Mhm.
like, right? Everybody's story is a
Right.
little bit different. And then they start telling stories about themselves, like, why can't, or like feeling guilty, I can't be there, I can't jump on the car and like go
Mm.
comfort you, right? Like then we, as the
Right.
receiver, don't have the understanding necessarily that there are ways that we can literally like hold space for somebody else's emotional experience without it meaning anything about us.
Mhm.
And that's really hard, right? That's a whole nother layer of like self actualization and realization, to recognize that this is like with your daughter, potentially it's easier in some ways because you didn't trigger that in her. Like
Mhm.
sometimes we're in a relationship with somebody and we trigger them because of, and then we have to hold space for that emotional experience to happen.
Right. Right.
But I think that you bring up something super powerful, and that is like, well, number one, I think is like a practice that I teach people is how to build emotional capacity. Like a lot of us don't have any capacity to hold our emotional space for ourselves, to hold
Mhm.
everything that we are without it meaning something about us. And that you can develop this strength and this resilience to, let's say, be like your daughter and have like this full-blown panic attack for an hour, which is super scary.
Mhm.
But don't have it mean anything about her. And actually, how about it's really beautiful because her nervous system was processing all of this fear and grief and uncertainty and these new circumstances and whatever it is that precipitated that experience for her. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with her. It actually means everything is just right with her because she was able to feel everything and then call her dad, and you were there. And like, how could it be any less perfect than that? You know?
Mhm.
But I think for all of us on the opposite end, this is where it's really important as well, is like that we can learn to create energetic distance from the person who we love or not love, a coworker or somebody who's pissed off at you in the line at the grocery store.
Mhm.
Um, but that we can hold a space for somebody else's expression, emotional expression, without taking it on ourselves as it means something about us. And that's a decision that we get to make, is like, and even if it does mean something about you, like let's pretend like you're in a spousal relationship or something like that, and it does mean something about you, you did do something wrong, but it's still how we hold the emotional space for somebody else's expression, without buying into it and escalating the conversation, and then taking it off the rails in a whole nother direction, and then creating all these other problems. Do you know what I mean? And so I think if you have emotional regulation and I have emotional regulation, I can still be pissed off, but you can hold space for me to just be mad and just say, I'm really sorry that I caused you anger, and I apologize. And like, you have emotional regulation, you can own the circumstance, you can apologize, you can hold space for her to be angry, and then you can hopefully move on. But a lot of us don't do that, do we? We like then create all these other problems, you know? And so I think what was really beautiful, like back to the circumstance with your daughter, is you just held space for her, and like, actually, there's nothing to fix. And this is what I teach people too, is like, when you're beginning to learn to hold your own emotional space, a lot of times we don't know what to do during that time as we're feeling all these things, because it's uncomfortable to feel a lot of emotions running through our body. It's really uncomfortable. And we don't normalize that in our society. And so what I suggest during this time is you have a little mantra, and the mantra is, there's nothing to fix. Your body's doing what your body's supposed to do. This is completely normal. We pathologize it and make it not normal, societally, culturally, and that's something I'd like to see change. And it's just like so beautiful. Like, if you were able to, you held the space for your daughter to have her meltdown, and even though internally you were quaking and wishing that you could be there, wrapping your arms around her and consoling her, but just your strength and resilience of being there, and was probably incredibly healing for her, but also reassuring her that there's nothing wrong with you. It's completely normal for you to feel this way, and there's nothing to fix. You are allowed to have this full expression of like fear and incompetence, or whatever it was that was wrapped up in her anxiety. And like, it's beautiful and it's okay. And like, your body just is experiencing this emotional state, but it doesn't mean anything about you. You are still strong enough to make these decisions. You are capable. You are a resilient young lady. And this is a normal part of just being a young adult.
And it really is.
Doubt yourself.
And I know there was a lot of it, you know, just being an only child, right? I have 8 siblings, right? So I have nothing about that
experience.
but her being an only child, you know, and then you move from, you know, around your friends and your family and everything that you know, and go to a whole nother space. And like, now you don't, you know, you really, everything is brand new, you know. And I think that just was a lot for her, you know. And then it was around the holidays as well. So I think it was some, you know, loneliness kicked in a little bit too, because now you're away from everybody. So yeah, just a lot of things. Like I definitely understand why it happened. You know, it was just something that I never experienced personally, or as a observer, should I say? You know, even though this was like, you know, I couldn't see her, but I could hear her. You know, and so, but I just had never experienced that. You know, and so it was just one of those things. I was just, you know, like I said, just as a dad, one of the most helpless feelings I've ever been in. You know, So that being said, you know, when we think about, you know, not just anxiety, but just other, you know, different things that we deal with, what would be something that we could practice, you know, even on a day-to-day basis, or however so often, you know, while we're not having an episode, you know what I mean, to try to, you know, nurture ourselves, you know, while we're in a calm state, you know, so that when we are faced with some traumatic, you know, things or whatever, then we can kind of fall back on our practices or our training, in the midst of it, because we've already been kind of working on it. So is there any tools or any exercises or something like that that you could share with us, that we probably could do on a daily basis, just to kind of help us, keep ourselves together?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that. And yes, there is. I think, though, I think it goes back to what I was saying before, and maybe it's not always in the calm moments. In the calm moments, there's all sorts of things you can say to bolster yourself, like just normalizing your emotional expression is one
Mhm.
thing. Like, we don't have a lot of ways of doing that in our culture and our society, like shared. Um, but one of the things that I do is I just think building emotional capacity is where we begin with all things. And anytime you find yourself triggered, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. If you can start to see that you are not that, and actually learn to hold that emotional space and feel it for like 30 seconds, just 30 seconds, like, and trust your body is doing what it's supposed to do. And you don't need to like get in there with your mind and have it, like I said, have it mean something about you. But if you can just like practice holding the emotion that you're experiencing for 30 seconds, and you just sit with that, and during that time you tell yourself there's nothing to fix,
Mm.
just that, you will be shocked at what happens. You will be absolutely floored at what happens. Because over time, what ends up happening is the little things that irritate you and trigger you, or whatever, that's a popular word, they
Mhm.
actually stop bothering you. And then the amount of time that you're able to confidently, comfortably hold this uncomfortable feeling um, will also increase. And then you'll actually have the space and the confidence to hold these big things, like the real life things, like like your daughter moving to another state where she doesn't know anybody.
Mhm.
That's like real life big stuff.
Mhm.
And then you have the confidence. And then the other thing that starts to happen from that is you start to listen to your body more. You start to trust yourself. A lot of times we don't have any trust in ourselves. We expect other people to hold that for us without necessarily trusting ourselves. And so when you start to build self resilience, you start to build self trust, you start to believe self belief, like, I believe in myself. I know I can do this. I know I can hold myself. Then all of a sudden your entire world changes, and your health improves. And but I think the biggest, most important part of it, though, stepping aside from that emotional experience that we're holding, is like really recognizing that we don't have to fix all of these things. There's nothing to fix.
Mhm.
It's really about allowing yourself to feel the things that you feel, like you already talked about
Mhm.
that, and allowing yourself to feel those things without it meaning anything about you. It's not your identity. It's just something you're experiencing, and you can experience something without it meaning anything about you.
Yeah.
And also, like, let's say you find yourself mad all the time and you're holding the space. It doesn't mean anything about me. I'm not a mad guy. I'm not a mad guy. I'm not fixing anything. But over time, you start to recognize, you know what? Every time I actually get mad, it's this one person. Or
Mhm.
actually, every time I get mad, it's this circumstance. Or then you start to create new relationship with the emotional experience that you're having. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
You get more clarity around around
Yeah.
like the pattern or what it's trying to tell you. Or do you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Because it's kind of like, when you said, I thought about a conversation I've had with a friend of mine, right? And they have one other sibling. It's only two of them, and they love each other, but they just don't get along. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I'm having this conversation with them, and they're like, every time we get around each other, we always end up arguing. And so I said, well, how long, when you guys are around each other, how long are you around each other before it gets to the point where now you're arguing? And it's like, well, usually within, maybe 30 minutes, like we're around each other. It starts off, we're cool. We're like, hey, how you doing? We're hugging. About 30 minutes later, we're arguing about something. And so I said, well, that's where your boundaries need to kick in, right? So since
Yes.
you know that it's 30 minutes, around like 20 minutes, you need to, remove yourself. Even
Hmm.
just by removing yourself for a couple minutes, then that way when you come back, the 30 minutes starts over again. You know what I mean? And it
Yes.
give
Yes.
give yourself, that boundary and that buffer to keep, from always arguing. And I think it's just one of those things that we have to recognize, how different people make us react, or how different situations make us react, emotionally, even physically, you know um even things that we're dealing with, when we recognize, like you said, like if I'm mad all the time, like, okay, maybe it's something to that. Why am I mad all the time? I remember I remember a comedian saying, if some people wake up and they're eating cereal, they're already mad. You're like, you mad at cereal? You know what I mean? You look at Captain Crunch, you're like smacking the Captain Crunch box, like, what are you doing? But that's the reality. Like some of us, and even if it's not just anger, but some of us have emotions that we carry consistently throughout our lives and throughout our day, and we never even take the time to kind of think of like, why am I this way all the time? Why am I sad all the time? Why am I happy all the time? Because even though we always want to have joy, but there's not always something to be happy about. So it's like, what are you kind of overlooking, or you know what I mean? It's like, why am I
Yeah.
this way all the time? And there's no kind of, ups and downs with my emotions and things of that nature. And I think when we take time to kind of focus on that and realize, or not even realize, but just kind of pay attention to ourselves, like, okay, I'm feeling this way, what made me feel this way, and then tomorrow if I feel that way again, okay, what's the common thread? Maybe it's some things I need to change in my diet, even, because food makes
Yeah.
me feel some type of way. What I
Yeah.
mean?
Food will make you angry. But I love what you just said too, because like playing on that idea of that, the siblings and the anger, it's like a lot of times we identify only with the anger because we don't actually allow ourselves to recognize what it is that's making us angry.
Mhm.
Every time I get angry because I don't feel heard, or I get angry because I feel disrespected, or I feel angry because you don't accept the life, that the choices that I'm making. Let's just say
Mhm. Yeah.
any of the
Yeah.
number of things. But you can choose to then address that, like with your sibling, for example, and be like,
Mhm.
I don't want us to fight every time. I don't like that we fight. It really bothers me that we get angry, but I feel like you don't accept the person that I am and the choices that I'm making, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And like you can deal with the problem like that, and like really understanding what's behind the anger. But you don't really know that if you're just always reacting to the anger
Mm.
and saying, "He always pisses me off." You know what I mean? And it's like, but why? And so if
Yeah.
we don't allow ourselves to have the moment of introspection and the gift of the message that's coming through the emotion,
Yeah.
right? There's always a gift in any emotion that we're experiencing. And so it's like, if we don't allow ourselves to recognize that there's a purpose behind all of this, and that your job is to find out what the purpose is, and then that's how you heal, right? then
Mhm.
then you have a healing moment that you can have with, let's say, your sibling, to be like, this would be really healing for me because I just don't feel like you hear me or see me, or I'm just putting words in
Mhm.
your mouth.
Yeah.
But then that's the real healing moment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To own the thing that you need to express what it is to the other person, and have them, allow them an opportunity to either meet you or not, but that's on them.
Yeah.
But at least you've honored yourself by recognizing what it is that you actually do need,
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
being swept into this emotional state that's triggering your blood sugar and your blood pressure. And you're mad
Yeah.
at your cereal.
Right. Right. I love it. I love it, Christine. So one of the things that I asked you before we started recording was if you were an author as well as a book, but you said you're not. However, you do write. Tell us a little bit more about your writings and things that you write about, and where we can find that.
Thank you. I write for Substack, which is a writer's platform. And I just write a lot of articles. I write articles about the healing process and all the ways that we heal. Everything from food and recipes that are optimal for our health and nutrition to all kinds of things like the vibration and frequency of healing. Like
Mm,
sometimes we do all the right things for our diet, but then the rest of our life is a disaster and we wonder why we can't lose weight. And it's like, well, maybe it's not entirely your diet, but
yeah.
it's all the other things that you are not recognizing that actually play into the inflammation that you're experiencing. And so I draw a lot of parallels between all of the different ways that we heal and why it's important.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Christine, I thank you so very much for being on and for sharing your story and your expertise. I want you to have the last word. I want you to leave us with a word of advice or motivation or whatever, however you feel. I want you to leave us with some ending words, final words, I guess you could say. And however you
Um,
feel with doing that. And also, I want you to leave us, with your social media handles and things of that nature, where we can find you and work with you. I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. So, to my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys are checking us out on our website, the Deal to Heal, not Deal to Heal, the Deal healfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, which is our main website, which you can find a lot of the things that we're doing now and more information that on things that we're up to, as well as I know that it needs recently or more recently in the near future, we're going to do an overhaul on it because it is a little bit outdated. But right now, you still can go there and find some information about all the things that we have going on. Again, that's fulfill.org. Also, you guys check out my other website, my speaker's website, should I say, which is Earnest James speakslife.com. Again, that's Earnest James speakslife.com, where you can go find out more information about me as a speaker, or in order to have me to come out to speak or to hold a workshop at your school or organization. Definitely go there. Again, Ernest James speakslife.com to find more information about that. Also, our ebooks, as you guys know, if you listen to every week, our ebooks were able to be found at ebooks.ejames.com. But probably by the time you guys are listening to or watching this episode, that website is no longer up. However, you still can get the ebooks, and actually now you can get the ebooks absolutely free when you join our community on the school platform that I talked about earlier, again, which is the Deal to Heal School for Living. We have a free resource area where there's a ton of free resources, including all of our ebooks are there absolutely free. You guys can scan the QR code in the corner in order to go straight there and check us out. Again, the first 7 days is absolutely free, but you can go to the resources tab and you'll be able to get all of our ebooks absolutely free. You can download them all again when you go and join our school community. Um, Also, Deal to Heal Tees, which is our inspirational t-shirt line. We are cutting back on a couple of the designs that we have, but that website is still up. Again, that's deal, the number two, healtees.com, deal to healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Make sure you guys go there and check out the inspirational tees that we have, including our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. There's one for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as one for the Girl Dead Discussions podcast. So you guys can go there and check those out as well. Also, one of the things that I'm very proud about is over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops bi-monthly talking about the area of forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, even forgiveness of the world. Because we really feel that forgiveness is a lost art amongst us in our communities now. And we want to bring it back. We want to bring it back to make it more normalized in order to bring back forgiveness and love to our communities and to our world. So make sure you guys go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for our next free virtual workshop. So whenever you're listening to this or watching this episode, either a workshop just ended or there's one coming up. So you can go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for our next free virtual workshop. Last but not least, we are proud to announce that we have now started our own nonprofit, which is Deal to Heal the World Incorporated. And what we plan on doing is bringing a lot of resources to our communities and to, every community that we serve, to be able to do more things for them for absolutely free. A lot of the events and things that we have to charge for. But by starting this nonprofit and allowing you to donate to help us be able to bring more resources and more activities and things to the community for absolutely free for the community. So you guys can look in the description to find out ways that you can give, how you can give. Again, that's Deal to Heal the World Incorporated, which is our new nonprofit. So make sure you guys go into the details in the description of the podcast to get that information if you would like to make a one-time donation or a reoccurring donation. We definitely appreciate it. So thank you guys so very much for all of that. Christine, once again, let me say thank you for being on. Thank you for sharing your story, your expertise, and your experience. I definitely appreciate it. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Wow. What an inspiration you are. So many opportunities. Gosh, I guess I'm going to just play off of your words. I'm going to hope to inspire people to deal with their emotions and take ownership of their emotions and build emotional capacity. And this is how you heal. This is how you heal all the things in your life, your relationships and your health, and how you find your mission in life. And that would be fulfilling yourself, fulfilling your life mission. And it all begins with healing your nervous system and learning to manage your emotional state and build capacity.
Yes, I love it. Where can we find you in order to work with you for those who would like to contact you?
My website is christineruch.com, and I do calls with people all the time and explore all sorts of interesting conversations around how their nervous system is impacting their health. And then you can also find me on my Substack, and I am on Instagram, although I am not a big Instagram, like making all the posts and all that stuff. I leave that to other people, but you will find a lot of links to all the podcasts that I'm on if you'd like to explore my philosophy around the nervous system and emotional healing and healing your health. And that's christineruch.ms.
All right. I love it. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.